What's up, Marvel fans? We're the Hills Maniacs, and today we're going to be talking about the funniest moments from the MCU featuring the God of Mischief himself, Loki.
Yeah, so we're going to be preparing for the premiere of the Loki series on Disney Plus.
Can't wait.
What a better way to do that than to look back on some of Loki's funniest moments, or funny moments that feature Loki from the MCU.
He's involved in some way, shape, or form in these moments. Yes. So the first one we have is the funniest moment, probably in my eyes,
through the whole MCU.
Probably from the entire MCU, but definitely the funniest moment of the first Avengers movie, and that's where Hulk is having a conversation with. Loki is saying how he's a god and that like he can't be beaten basically, and then Hulk comes up and just smashes him off the ground a bunch of times, and then afterwards you just hear him just laying there moaning because he's in pain.
And Hulk just says puny god.
And Hulk goes puny god, and it was just the funniest thing.
And then the funniest part of that though is that Loki was there for the rest. There was like 15 minutes left in the movie,
and he was still just
laying there, like stuck in the floor probably.
Yeah,
and then they come up and get him at the end, like in Avengers Tower and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, I thought. And I love that they had a callback to that like later on in Thor Ragnarok, which is another moment where like Hulk does the same thing to Thor, and then Loki shouts like "Yes!" Because Loki's there watching.
He's like, "That's how it feels."
Yeah. So there was that one too. It was a nice callback to that moment as well.
That one was also funny. I mean, along with the whole Thor saying how Hulk is a friend from work thing, that was hilarious.
I think they did a good job showing. I mean, Loki is he's meant to be a serious threat.
Right.
But then, especially throughout like Thor Ragnarok and stuff, they managed to make him a sort of funny character because he's like helping Thor, but he's also got his own sort of plan. But he's like, he's basically the comic relief or something, like the anti-hero that's like, Thor, you shouldn't do that, but Thor's like doing it anyways and all that stuff. I think they made it a weird transition in Loki's character, which is why we have all these funny moments. And he
definitely, Tom Hiddleston does a great job at portraying Loki. But the next one, staying with Ragnarok, there's a scene where they have to try and escape the Grand Master's like mansion thing on
his tower.
What's Sakaar? Is it
on Sakaar?
Sakaar.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to think of these different ways that they can escape, and
because there's a bunch of guards waiting.
Thor and Loki were like talking to each other, and Loki goes, "I'm not doing get help," which is basically where Thor drags Loki in, like Loki was injured, and he's like, "Hey, my brother's injured. Get help. I need help for him." And then they attack.
Well, he throws Loki.
And then he throws Loki, and Loki's like, "I'm not doing get help," and then they come out of the elevator and do it anyways. I mean, it was just watching Loki go spinning.
It's kind of funny to think of them having done that in other battles in the past.
Right. I mean,
he knew what it was.
If you watch the evolution of Thor and Loki throughout the MCU, it's like you wouldn't think of them having ever teamed up. Because Loki always seems to hate Thor, but you think about it like back when they were still younger. They probably went, into battle a lot together. So
Thor just throws Loki at everybody instead.
And just, and that's how they managed to escape big groups of enemies, I guess. The next one, we'll jump back to the first Avengers movie, because, and anybody that has a brother knows how hard this is, to get them to pay attention to you. But it was really hard for Thor to get Loki to hear what he was trying to say in the Avengers, when he says, "Listen here, brother," and then gets tackled by Tony Stark off of the rock, and Loki's left up there and he says, "Hey, I'm listening.
What do you want to say?" I thought that was great.
It was great because they didn't need that in there. They could have just showed like Tony and Thor, but they just left the camera on Loki, and he's just like, "I'm listening." And it was hilarious.
I wonder if Thor ever got to tell him what he was gonna say.
Probably not.
Listen here, brother. I'm listening. Yeah, I mean, even just those small moments and stuff, it's like that's what makes the MCU so great. But it's specifically on Loki and stuff, like you want to hate him, but he's like a hilarious character. Like by the end of his story, and now I'm sure there'll be more hilarious moments in the Loki series. And everything.
I mean, and even with Owen Wilson involved, it's definitely gonna be Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson clashing back and forth. You're gonna get some type of comedy in there. I hope so, at least.
It's, I mean, it's something you wouldn't expect from a character like Loki, having funny moments like this.
Right, but, especially this many. And I'm sure there's a lot of other ones that like we just didn't mention, but there's a lot of funny moments in general in the MCU. But for Loki, this is a real kind of step back from what his character is supposed to be. And so that's what I really like about how they wrote Loki in the MCU, because they just give Loki this freedom to just be the God of Mischief.
And he always gets away with it. Nobody can tell him otherwise. He can turn into whoever he wants.
Right.
And speaking of that, another funny moment that I like from the MCU was back in Thor: The Dark World, when when Thor helps Loki get out of prison. I think it was they were escaping or something. They're walking down the hallway. And Loki keeps turning into people while he's talking to Thor. Like, would you rather me turn into this person? And then he turns into Captain America and he's talking and stuff. And then I think he turns Thor into Lady Sif and says my brother, you look ravishing. Yeah. And all that stuff. And even I think he turned himself into Lady Sif, I think too. But that kind of funny stuff. I could see them doing that as kids too. He probably turned it. I remember in Ragnarok, for example, Thor said that when they were kids, Loki knew Thor liked snakes, so he turned into a snake, and then he jumped up, or Thor picked up the snake, and then he went, "Oh, it's me!" And it, that apparently that line was all made up by Chris Hemsworth, but that's pretty funny that got put into the
just
movie.
To think that Loki has been doing this since he was a kid.
Doing that kind of thing where he plays tricks on his brother since the beginning. It's weird to think that he's not really a villain. I mean, he's a villain when we see him in the Avengers, but the rest of the time he's pretty much an anti-hero, and that's what everybody loves about him. And
I mean, can you really even call him that? Because technically, by the end of the franchise, or at least when he dies, well, at least when he dies in Endgame, he's kind of on that redemption story. So
exactly.
But before we go, I have one more that I wanted to talk about, because it really sums up Loki and how he thinks of himself, and that is the "your savior is here" moment in Ragnarok, when they're fighting Hela and her new group of people, and they're trying to get the Asgardians off of Asgard. And so Loki shows up in this big ship, and he goes, "Your savior is here." That right there was classic Loki, because that's Loki probably wasn't trying to be funny in that moment. He probably literally thought that he was their savior, and that's what just made it really funny, was because that's Loki's character,
and right now,
but it's also funny.
And right now, to me, Loki feels like the Deadpool of the MCU, where he knows he is intentionally being a moment like that. He's being sarcastic and trying to be sort of funny, but he deep down he does think he's their savior. So everyone's gonna bow to me because I'm saving you, but he's also making it a funny moment. That's stuff that Deadpool does. And I can't wait for someday to see an interaction between Deadpool and Loki, because who knows what might happen by the end of the Loki series. Loki could be alive again.
And Deadpool is now part of the MCU, so who knows? We could end up seeing Deadpool and Loki. And the banter between Ryan Reynolds and Tom Hiddleston would be... that'd be something to look forward to, because a lot of his stuff was, Ryan Reynolds stuff was actually him, a lot of it. So
we're looking forward to seeing more funny moments from Loki in the...
Hopefully.
Hopefully. In the, in his fight against like the. Well, I guess he's not fighting against them, but his interaction with the time variance authority and all that in the upcoming Loki series. So let us know down in the comments section. What do you think was Loki's funniest moment in the MCU? And also, what are you looking forward to the most about the new series? Thank you for watching this video, everyone. Please like it and subscribe for more as well. We'll talk about the new Loki series starting next week. Every Saturday we talk about Marvel, so stick around for that if you're a Marvel fan, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.
Subscribe.